my name is Mona Fastvold, and I am the director of Bleecker Streets, The World to Come. And I'm here today with David Siegel and Scott McGehee, the directors and writers of Montana Story. The film is so beautiful, I have to say that first of all. It's such a fantastic movie. I watched it by myself yesterday, so I was sitting alone, crying, and having feelings, being transported back to you know, that kind of, you know, that age where you're an adult, but you're not quite an adult yet. And I think that you guys are so incredible at telling stories about young adults and children. Like there's a through line in your films where you guys really like tap into that. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I guess it does. I mean, I think...
Yeah.
We just live regressed lives.
Well, I mean, it is a lot of fun to, like, I think, tap into your own memories and experiences that way. And I think with this movie in particular, you know, David and I both grew up in California, which, you know, for us, there was a kind of Western atmosphere to our memories of our youth, and we've talked a lot about ways to kind of go at making a Western film that, you know, is a kind of exploration of our experience growing up in California. And a lot of those ideas and feelings, I think, got translated into, you know, a movie in Montana this time.
I mean, we had never been to Montana. We kind of wrote the story, you know, from our individual homes in New York City, and the Montana that was in our imaginations, you know, sort of came from, like Scott said, our experiences in the West, but also the internet and sort of researching the place itself. And so when we got there, it was, you know, it was just a question of like what the differences would be, but it kind of exceeded our expectations in almost every way.
Yeah. We'd never worked that way before, where we and it was, you know, during the lockdown, we conceived and wrote this screenplay really quickly, and just went to Montana to start making the movie, having never set foot in the state before.
That's wild.
Yeah, no, always before, like, locations have been such a part of our creative process, like kind of getting to the place and really experiencing it and feeling the story kind of come out of the place. And this really was just the, you know, our imagined Montana was, you know, like the whole of it. So.
Well, it's so beautifully captured on 35 millimeters, anamorphic, and you just really, you feel the landscape. And what I really think is like so exciting about how you shot it is how small the characters feel, and this, you know, with these, like, surrounded by these massive mountains, and how there's really nothing around. It's just this house and that's it. I think that's, you know, really added to the poetry of the movie.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it's something that you enjoy also,
It
going
is,
to a
yes.
place where there's nothing but you and your actors. And
Yes. Yeah, I love, like, one of the first shot, there's a fallen tree over the fence, and I was like, oh, that's like beautiful line that just like it just takes you into the story in such a great way.
The tree was actually, you know, that was something that was scripted, but of course a tree hadn't fallen on that fence, and we had to find a tree and bring it to the fence and crush the fence, and it was, you know, this family's working farm, but we had the most cooperative family ever, and the guy who owned the ranch itself,
Andy O'Hare.
Andy O'Hare brought our art director out in, like, you know, in the back of his land. They spotted which fallen tree they were going to, like, haul over, and he himself, like, helped bring the tree and crush his own fence with the tree.
We couldn't have made the movie without the amazing cooperation of the O'Hare family and their ranch, and they've been ranching that land for really a long time, and their family goes back in Montana a long way, and they were just amazing, and also couldn't have done it without our amazing art director, Shiloh Kidd, who was really so inventive with the storm, with the tree, with so many things that, because our resources were quite limited, and his inventiveness really won the day.
Let's talk a little bit more about how the story came to you guys and sort of where it came from. So you were both you were not work, because you guys work together as a team always, as I do with my partner as well. So it must be really, but you know, we're you know, couple as well, so we got to work in the same space, but being separated and then finding the story and then trying to write it together. Like how did you do that? And
we were about to go into prep on an adaptation of a book called The Friend, which is by Sigrid Nunez, that we really, really love this project, and it's what we're trying to make right now. But when the lockdown occurred, we kept thinking that we'd be able to get the movie back on its feet. Like so many people, you know, we just didn't expect it to go on as long as it has. And by the middle of 2020, we realized that wasn't going to happen and just started talking about a story, or the ideas for the story sort of came out of to some degree what was happening politically and socially, and our memories, as Scott said, about our youth in California and in the West. We just started building it, and we weren't together. We were like spending 8 and 10 hours a day on the telephone, literally, just sort of working out the story with our story collaborator, Mike Spreeder, who works with us as well.
I mean, David and I, we've been roommates, we've been office mates, like we've had all different versions of like co-writing. You know, when we first started out, we would I would stand over David's shoulder as he was typing, and like, I mean, it's evolved into a process that is pretty, like, we kind of understand each other. We outline really thoroughly and each take pieces of the story. But this one really wrote
we'd never
faster
done
than
anything like that.
ever. Yeah.
I mean, we wrote the script in a few weeks. It was really, and you know, it was, and I mean, Scott always takes exception to this, but it really was like we sort of carved it out of space, because it just came to us so quickly, and we felt so connected to it so quickly. So.
yeah, when I was watching, I was like, oh, is this based? What is this based on? You know, like it felt like there was. I was like, is it a book? Is it like? Does it come from literature? It has like it's you know, but then I was like, no, it's just.
Well, I think
it's a beautiful piece of writing.
I think we learned something about writing in writing this that maybe we hadn't before, about the elemental nature of like story construction, because we were really writing that we were writing archetypes in a way that we hadn't done before, and maybe that's why the story flowed so easily.
It does. It really does. Isn't it interesting when you get to that point with your writing partner where you can actually just write different parts of the story at the same time?
Yeah.
So like after several decade of working together, and much more for you guys, it's just so strange when you can all of a sudden be even if you're working on something that hasn't happened yet in a way.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know how it is for you and Brady, but when we first bring our writing together and read it the first time, it's such a mess. Like the stuff I've worked on and the stuff David's worked on, and we've both done some things twice, and some things we've forgotten to do at all, and the style of it is all over the place, and it really is just a process of rewriting each other over and over and over that kind of brings it all into coherent form. And,
but I do think that sort of that dialogue that you're having throughout the writing process, that ends up in the film.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It's like you feel that like these two voices, especially in this one, which is so centered around two people, and their different takes on the same story.
Yeah. No, I bet you guys feel it too. It's sort of essential. Like I can't imagine writing a script without having that dialogue in the process of writing. Like, and that's, I mean, for us too, in directing as well, because I think we both feel so lucky because there's a dialogic relationship to the way we shoot and the way we write and the way every aspect of our filmmaking. And, it's really, there's always someone there with you.
Yeah. Especially in the writing process, I think that I always feel, I can kind of go out on a limb because I trust David to give me feedback. Whereas if I were writing just for myself, I think I would self-edit before trying something outlandish. And now and then those things work, and it's really great to kind of have a collaborator to, bounce stuff off of, and you know, someone you trust.
To write that terrible idea and
Yeah.
then be like, this is terrible.
Yeah, but then sometimes
maybe
there's something you
something
save
there.
in it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and then the other person is like, yes, that is actually good. Yes, this is terrible, but this is good. How do you guys co-direct? You know, we don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how to do that.
You know,
How does that work?
We didn't. You know, we were so ignorant about everything in the film business when we first started making short films that we just started doing it together. There was no one there to say, oh, that's a little unusual, or maybe one of you should do this and one of you should do that. So it just evolved organically as a process working together. And it's changed a little bit over time, but you know, our rules on set are a little bit different. But we, you know, as we were saying about writing, it's every aspect of the process is together.
Yeah, and because we write together, I think by the time we get to set, it's all, you know, we've had our fights, we've like, you know, had our main disagreements, we've like really kind of found a way to both believe in the same set of things. And
We also learned really early if we weren't agreeing about something on set, we would never discuss it on set. We used to say, like, never fight in front of the children, because
Yeah.
all of a sudden you start hearing ideas coming at you from people. It's like, no. This isn't
yeah,
an
right,
open
this
discussion.
conversation.
Yeah, well, I guess because you've developed such a strong language together
Yeah.
on so many films. So then it's like, you know, you have those reference points to always draw from.
Yeah, there's a lot of silent communication now. I mean, after so many years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. How did you? Can you talk a bit about your cast
Sure.
and how you ended up with these amazing actors?
Yeah, I mean, we'd been talking to Haley Lou Richardson about working on this other project that we had to put aside. We'd been working on a character with her, and we still hadn't met her in person. It wasn't because of COVID, it was just because she was in California and we were here, but we've been collaborating on the writing a little bit, working on a character. And so when that stopped, she was still kind of in our heads as we were writing Aaron, and we were really happy when she decided she could do it with us. And
Owen, it was just a cold audition, you know, and it was a taped audition, of course, because no one was face to face. And he just was amazing. I mean,
he was in his parents' attic in Florida or something.
Right.
So they never met. And
No.
you didn't do any reading.
No, we had a Zoom meeting at first, and we were, you know, that's a, you know, their dynamic in the film is so specific. You know, their closeness, their familial closeness, and their estrangement, and you know, our hope that they would relate to each other as siblings really came. I mean, they just walked right into it, because it could have been so many other kinds of. They could relate to each other in so many different kinds of ways, but they just really felt like they were joined in some very essential way from the beginning.
And of course, we were all in this little bubble, so they spent all of their time together,
That
which
helps.
was super sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Owen was when we were writing the character of Cal, you know, we really wrote it from, you know, we wanted that innocent, lanky, Colt-like, you know, kind of sensitive young man, and he just really fit the bill so well. I mean, he has said, you know, he never felt so connected to a character just naturally, and it felt like that to us when we started working together.
Yeah, there's a tenderness to his performance that is just really heartbreaking, and it's the key, I think, to the whole story in some ways. That he's trying to approach her, and he's trying to, but he doesn't know how to. But there's no, you know, he's just so calm, and the way he's receiving all this like anger and aggression from her.
I'm glad it feels that way to you.
Yeah.
Owen could bring Scott to tears on set. Many times,
That's
Scott. I'd start
I'd be
hearing
there at the
Scott.
monitor, and it doesn't always happen.
Be like, you gotta keep it down.
It's true.
And so you basically got to Montana, and then we were like, okay, we're going to scout and try and figure out where, like, you scouting online basically, just getting.
We hired a scout to look for us. I mean, the the schedule that we had to kind of live in or live up to was so tight. There could be like we tend to like drive locations people crazy, like looking for the specific places that we want to shoot. But we went to Montana in the middle of September for 5 days and had to find the ranch in that period of time. When we were casting in September, we had dates that we absolutely had to meet, or we were going to run into the winter in Montana, which is really brutal. As it was, we got hit by some really ferocious weather, but we were able to shift the schedule around to accommodate it. But that was what it was like. We had the 5 days to choose the ranch. Then we came back for we only had 2.5 weeks of prep when we came back. And, we had our Giles Nugents, who we made four other movies with, actually. That was our close collaborator, Scott's sister Kelly, who's our production designer. So we had people, it was a real family, a group of people that was sort of like a family. So, but it was fast. We were working really, really fast.
Is it freeing in a way to just have to make those decisions?
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, it was
I
actually.
can imagine,
Yeah.
because it's easy to be just like, oh,
To torture a decision.
am I going to
yeah.
marry this location? I'm going to marry this farm, and it's
Right.
going to be, is it?
Right.
And you weigh all the pros and cons, and you obsess over it so much. It's probably nice. to
Honestly,
just-
it was that way with casting too. Just
Yeah.
like seeing Owen, he was like really the first audition that came in, and he was perfect. And we could have like, oh, we want to see more, but it was just like, no, this is the guy. Like, let's just like accept that we found the perfect person in the first place. The first ranch we saw was the perfect ranch. We just kind of like.
But we did see many ranches after
We saw
that.
more after that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it sounds nice in a way to just like not have this endless like lead up into actually making the movie, which I feel like can be so trying sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, limited choices or.
The most difficult thing in production was weather. We really got hit by some seriously bad weather, and that caused us to have to upend the schedule 3 times, I think. But it was. I mean, you know what it's like when the problems of production at the time seem so difficult, but there's a lot of creativity and kind of joy in solving the problems.
Yeah.
The bad weather that's in our movie, there's a big storm and a climactic, scene near the end, and of course we had to create that, and it was freezing cold, and we had, $5 to make this storm. Again, our art director McGyvered kind of storm machine out of like parts from Home Depot, but it was freezing cold, and our whole like grip and electric team had to be outside like with blow torches, keeping the storm.
Because
like,
the rain bars that he had
the rain bars from freezing.
were freezing.
And then 3 days later you have a storm, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that sounds intense.
It was.
Yeah.
We're very proud of that storm.
Yeah.
That's the for us, that's the kind of biggest special effect thing we've ever done. So.
Yeah. Well, it looks great.
Did you shoot live weather in your film?
Yeah, a mixture.
A mixture.
Yeah, I created a storm, a snowstorm.
The snowstorm
The snowstorm is created completely, but I had 2 days of snow when I came back because we did a split shoot. So I did 2 seasons for my summer section, and then I did spring and the rest of the seasons in winter for when we came back. But
and you could plan there would be snow when you needed snow, and there wouldn't be snow when you didn't need it.
Yeah.
That worked
Like
out.
things like that. Yeah, I mean, I feel at least like it mostly was like the leaves on the trees and like the beautiful fall colors that I needed.
It's
beautifully
captured.
Go away. Thank you. Yeah, no, but it's I luckily I had just those 2 days with snow on the ground, and then it melted, but I got to capture some of the actual winter.
second film, The Deep End, we shot in Lake Tahoe in the spring. Well, it was early.
It was almost this time. It was the middle of May, literally the middle of May, and on day one.
Where we planned to shoot exteriors to kind of ease into the show. Out of season, just
6
huge,
inches,
6 inches
of
snow. And we had to rush inside to our one room cover set that was available to us and shoot, like not looking out any windows. But yeah, I mean, weather's beautiful, but
But it never does what you want it to, I feel.
Whether it happens.
Yeah. To me, I'm always just scared of getting that like harsh sun. I feel like, when you
Right.
plan that it's going to be gray and beautiful and you get that sun. Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the visual, working with your DP and shooting on 35? And
Sure. I mean, we shot all of our movies on film except for Uncertainty, and we really felt like film was going to be important to the look of Montana. We thought that would. It's a very, it's a it's a rough story, but it's also a romantic story. It's a story about a particular time in people's lives in a particular kind of place, and we really thought that film would add to that.
we wanted a kind of like Western nostalgia feeling for the movie too. I think that was just part of where we were coming from, and somehow film seemed like it would kind of lend
yeah.
a vibe.
Yeah, I think like that, the texture and the grain and like the depth of the colors is so important to this particular story, because you want to see those like beautiful like painter-like landscapes, and so there's some beauty, like adding some beauty to a story that can be at times really like painful to watch as well. I think
Yeah.
that's like eases you into it. Like it's so enjoyable as well.
Yeah. I mean, it plays a little bit like a fable that way, I think, I hope. And working with Kelly on the color palette of the movie, and Catherine George, who did the costumes, beautiful work, especially in a story that's supposed to be so naturalistic. I mean, Scott and I really like to create a kind of hyper-visualized world that feels natural. So even though there's a lot of specificity to the color, you want people to feel dropped into a world that feels true and real unto itself. So that was really fun to talk about all of that with Kelly and Catherine and Giles, and sort of figure out how it was going to work. We saw the ranch, and we saw the colors that sort of emerged naturally from the ranch and the place, and to some degree that's where the costumes and the interior design came from.
And then you have this like burst of color when she arrives,
Yeah.
which I like. She looked, you can see she doesn't belong, and
Right.
even when she's like wearing old clothes that she's left behind, it's still like
She stands
out in the landscape, which is like that one image where she's riding with her red sweater, and I was like, yes, great. Yeah. And your composer and your score.
Yeah.
Is that a long relationship with that composer, or is it new?
No, the guy who did our scores, Kevin Morby, who's known as kind of a pop singer-songwriter, and we came upon the song that opens the film, "Oh My God," and put it on the beginning of the film, and loved the kind of feel of it so much that we called him up and said, "Hey, would you consider working with us on the rest of the music?" And he'd never done that before.
I mean, Isaac Hagee is the editor, and we hadn't worked with Isaac before either, and that was a wonderful experience also. But Isaac is really good with music. He cuts Atlanta. He's one of the editors for the television show Atlanta. And Isaac really put a lot of good stuff in the temp score, or temp scored the movie really well for the assembly. But we really struggled with the beginning of the movie, what the beginning of the movie would sound like, what the movie in general would sound like. We had ideas initially about steel guitar that we thought maybe were too sort of on the nose. So it was a real, it was a real search. And when we hit on "Oh My God," as Scott was saying, like, it seemed natural to just contact Kevin and see if he'd be interested, and he was. And we had a great experience with him.
Yeah, lovely guy.
Yeah, it's nice when the songs or something you place in the film also speaks to the score, and it's all connected.
Yeah.
It's nice when like the source cues don't feel like they're from another, like everything kind of is tied together in that way.
Yeah.
And it feels also connected to your to him, like to the to your lead character. Like it feels like it's like his. Somehow, like
Right.
it's
That's
like
nice.
with little. Then he plays a little, and then you hear this.
Well, so the mandolin that he plays, that was, he got to set and we were talking to him, and realized that he was a musician. This is something we didn't know him that well. So, and he had brought his mandolin with him, and it turned out his mandolin was made like, an hour from where we were shooting. It actually is a Montana mandolin. So, yeah. So we talked to him about that scene. We revised the script to kind of put the mandolin in, that he's bringing the mandolin with him when he comes back home, but he finds it there when he comes back home, but he's not quite ready to play it yet. And so the journey of him kind of like rediscovering his love of music is part of his little story.
And like you're saying, like the way it ties into the rest of the score that Kevin wrote, we really like that.
And the rest of your cast, were they local hires? How did you end up with the rest of your?
There were only two local actors in the movie, or three local actors in the movie. The guy who plays the lawyer, John Luden, who actually runs a theater in Bozeman, and Kate Britton, who plays the realtor, and Rob Story, who plays Wade, the dying father. And the rest of the actors were auditions, and A.V. Kaufman was our casting director, and we looked long and hard actually for all of them because we really wanted, we just really wanted those characters to feel as rooted as possible. And so Gilbert O'Rourke plays Ace, and Eugene Braverock plays Mookie, and Asiva Kostujian plays Joey, and Kimberly Guerrero plays Valentina.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. It feels really, you feel the whole universe, so it feels so, I was like, I wanted to look up who everybody was, because I was like, it felt so grounded in the space that you were in and in that environment.
Asivak, who plays Joey, was the hardest one to find, and the last piece of casting to fall into place. And I don't know how we didn't turn him up early. I think maybe there was a thought that because he's Canadian, there was a thought that we couldn't bring him over across the border, and we worked that out with old treaty was called into play that Native peoples can cross the border without being bothered. So that's how we got him over, even because the borders were quite difficult to cross because of the shutdown. But yeah, he was a real surprise. He auditioned for us. He sent an audition from his iPhone. He had been up on some caribou hunting expedition way in the north of Canada when he heard about the movie, and had to, I guess, like with some sort of old-fashioned dial-up modem, had to upload this audition on his iPhone from way in the north of Canada. And then he showed up and he was great. So,
How long was your shoot? Was it a more intense shoot as well, or?
I think we had 25 days total. Yeah. We're not that fast. I'd love to claim we were, but we're not that fast. So 25 days.
I think that's pretty fast.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys do a lot of rehearsals with the cast, or how do you sort of approach it?
We like rehearsing. We had a week where we could do rehearsing with Haley and Owen. We didn't really get rehearsal with anybody else, but it was nice to be able to read the scenes with them and talk about where we were, where we thought we would be going, and so that was good.
Do they change and develop the writing as you do your rehearsals, or do you pretty much stick to your plan?
We're pretty close to the script.
We're pretty close to the script this time. Yeah. Well, I think we generally are. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the casting of this movie, Owen, everyone actually, all the characters to some degree naturally fit, or the actors naturally fit the characters, but Haley Liu is an extremely different person than the character she's playing in Aaron. Haley's a very gregarious, very bright, joyful person, and that openness that she has as a person, and we'd spent time with her on Zoom, we thought, how are we going to, how will we talk to Haley about the character to get her into this other kind of place? But we really didn't need to. She arrived with it. It was really, that was kind of amazing. If anything, we had to pull it back a little bit, but she was great.
Yeah, because she's got a good sense of humor too, the character, I feel.
Yeah.
Like she's, so when that comes out, you sort of, then
she's wry.
Yeah, and then you see what the relationship between them probably used to be before everything happened.
Yeah.
that's all we have time for today. It was lovely talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mona.